I myself have dreamed up an intermediate step between Dyson spheres and planets. Build a ring 93 million miles in radius, one Earth orbit, which would make it 600 million miles long. If we have the mass of Jupiter to work with, and if we make it a million miles wide, we get a thickness of about 1,000 meters. The ring world would thus be much sturdier than a Dyson sphere. There are other advantages. We can spin it for gravity. A rotation on its axis of 770 miles per second would give the ring world one gravity outward. We wouldn't even have to roof it over. Put walls 1,000 miles high at each rim, aimed at the sun, and very little of the air will leak over the edges. The thing is roomy enough, 3 million times the area of the Earth. It'll be some time before anyone complains of the crowding. That's right. Today we'll be starting the first of our big Halo series here on Cooperative Conversations. This is a game I wanted to feature on the show ever since we did Unreal, and the recent ongoing release of the Master Chief Collection on PC has made it a lot easier to put together. So here's a quick rundown. We'll be playing all the games available on PC in release order, and do our Cooperative Conversations thing of taking a close look at each one, starting right here with Halo 1. But not this one. There we go. Now, Halo 1 is a game that really needs no introduction, but let's give it one. Halo 1, or Combat Evolved, is a science fiction first-person shooter released in 2001 for the original Xbox, created by Bungie, who were at that point known for making the Marathon games, which were what you played if you had a Macintosh in the 90s and were sad you couldn't play Doom instead. Halo takes very heavy inspiration from 4 main sources. The setting of Larry Niven's Ringworld, the general aesthetic of James Cameron's Aliens, the narrative presentation of Valve's Half-Life, and the world design of Epic's Unreal. No, not yet. That's next game. Unfortunately, Halo does none of these very well. The result is a bare-bones shooter that has basically no identity of its own, that came out a full 3 years after those other 2 games that had already set the PC gaming scene on fire. But Halo didn't release on PC, or at least not until late 2003, and that's the thing. It didn't have to impress the people in 2001 who were currently playing Deus Ex. It had to impress someone who had played a couple rounds of GoldenEye that one time. But I'm getting a tiny bit ahead of myself. We should get to actually playing this thing, and how we're doing that is an important note to make. Of course, we're playing on the Master Chief Collection, and we'll be using the classic graphics to properly comment on the presentation. Yes, I'm aware of the issues this version inherited from the original Gearbox PC port, and I promise you that things Randy Pitchford messed up do not actually change anything about what we're going to focus on. So yes, the energy shields don't change color. It wouldn't make the level design better if they did. We will, however, take a look at the remastered side of the game when we're all done, because it's certainly interesting to see what some places look like. So, I'm Reckon, or Gareth, whatever. He's Skelzor, and we're going to play some Halo.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.
We made a blind jump. How did they...
Get here first? The Covenant ships have always been faster. As for tracking us all the way from Reach, at light speed my maneuvering options were limited.
We were running dark, yes?
Until we decelerated, no one could have missed the hole we tore in subspace. They were waiting for us on the far side of the planet.
So, where do we stand?
Our fighters are mopping up the last of their recon picket now, nothing serious. But I've isolated approach signatures for multiple CCS-class battle groups. Make it 3 capital ships per group. And in about 90 seconds, they'll be all over us.
Well, that's it then. Bring the ship back up to Combat Alert Alpha. I want everyone at their stations.
Everyone,
What
sir?
were they doing before that?
Checkers?
And Cortana.
Hmm?
Let's give our old friends a warm welcome.
I've already begun.
Attention all combat personnel. Please report to your action station.
So you mentioned the movie Aliens in the intro.
I did. I wonder why I did such a thing as that.
Fifth platoon, secure airlocks on deck 11. 14th platoon, rendezvous with
Did you know,
22nd
actually,
Tactical at
that
Overhead Charlie 14.
the big scene where I think is it Hicks or Hudson is going on about the technology they have, all the gear, when they're in the dropship down to LV-426, is not actually in the theatrical cut.
Huh.
Here's where we show those split-chin, squid-head sons of bitches that they can
That's
not pick
surprising.
the worst enemy than the human race. We are going to blow the hell out of those dumb bugs until we don't have anything left to shoot them with. And then we are going to strangle them with their own living guts. Am I right, Marines? Sir, yes, sir!
Well spoken, Apone.
Damn right I am.
Very well.
Now move it out. Double time.
Attention all
You know, something I was
personnel.
surprised in. I got the chance to see Aliens in a theater, and it's an amazing experience. If you ever
All
have
you
that
greenhorns
opportunity, you
who
should
wanted
take
to see
it.
Covenant up close. This
Well,
is going to be your lucky
Movie
day.
theaters might not exist next year, but dark room, big screen, watch Aliens, right? But yeah, that's it's not in the theatrical cut,
Bringing low-level
and it's
systems
a
online.
shame because that's a
Cracking the
really
case in
good
30
scene
seconds.
to really illustrate the hubris of the colonial marines, which is of course
Hey, that's...
the point of the movie.
Yes. That's a very familiar looking cryopod.
It is, and now there's another one. I think it's implied it came up through the floor, maybe?
I don't know.
Because it
If
has
you look
these
at
like
the,
caution strips, but there are other
Maybe.
ones over here that don't have caution strips. I don't know. This is Halo.
Yeah.
We are playing on Heroic, the way it's meant to be played when NVIDIA isn't claiming that. Mainly just to skip this, like, 8-hour-long tutorial sequence that's like, hey kids, you've never played a game on a console before. We're gonna teach you how to use 2 things at once.
Well, we'll go into the controls a bit later, but yes, it's a necessity that can also be bypassed.
Oh yeah. And
So off on our
first-
grand adventure.
First look, really, at the interior of the Pillar of Autumn, close up anyway, minus that hangar, munitions hangar, vehicle pool, whatever. You know, it's pretty detailed. You got like these struts, you got these canisters in the primary colors. I think they contain paint. Are they for the Marines to eat on the way here?
Oh yeah, that's their crayon supply, man.
Just giant 800
Yeah, look.
gallon tubs of crayons.
Hey, you got all 3 flavors.
Yeah.
I think that these early areas on the Autumn definitely are very good looking, especially for the time. You know, considering that they're working with like angular grey corridors, which is
Yeah.
definitely going to set the tone for the rest of the game.
And I'm gonna get this out of the way right now. This sequence we're in right now of, you know, waking up on a spaceship under attack by a mysterious alien force. Certainly reminiscent of our old friend Unreal.
Well, as we go
And-
forward, the similarities will pile up.
God. We're not gonna shut up about that. I'm not gonna shut up about that. So, if you're not impressed, feel free that you don't have to watch this. Please do. We'll talk about other things. But let's get a move on.
Shall we?
So we see...
Oh! He already exploded. We missed it.
Oh, we missed it. We're taking too long. We're not engaging with the roller coaster.
Oh, hints of some sort of attacking alien force glimpsed through partially closed doors.
Wild. Well, something to note here. We're seeing a lot of this, the interior here, and already it's a lot cleaner looking. The textures aren't really that detailed. Shrug. But we definitely have a name. We are not a nameless prisoner as we were in Unreal. We are the Master Chief. We're an important space person who is here to save the day. But not right now, because we need a weapon. Get out of my way. Ah, yes, we come now to our second unique room. The Barricade Room. It's where they keep the barricades.
Well, you know, you often need large metal barricades inside a spaceship.
Yeah, and it's because these things over here are explosive. What happens if they explode? Now you have barricades to hide behind. Makes perfect sense to me. So...
You know, Master...
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to comment. Master Chief is an interesting choice of rank. It's definitely something they picked because it sounds cool and not because it makes sense at all.
Yeah, it's my understanding, and I'm probably going to embarrass myself here, but an actual Master Chief is more desk-bound and signing a very important signature.
They're in charge of people. They aren't, you know, boots on the ground, super Spartan, ultra special force cyborgs.
Yes, but that brings up a good point. What are we? Because, you know, we're the Master Chief, but we're in BMX gear. We're in shiny metallic green BMX gear, and this guy's in a Bad Aliens cosplay. What are we?
I think the scrolling text on the little lens is pretty cool. But yeah, it's
that's cool.
I mean, we saw ourselves in the opening cutscene. That's the only real glimpse you get. But yeah, there's certainly a disparity in the quality of equipment.
I don't know what you're doing to make that stance, but there's a thing where you're like, yeah, that you're jutting your head out.
I'm looking down. If you just look straight down, your head juts.
Well,
yeah, there you go.
Well, that's what it looks like.
It's amazing.
That's posturing. Right. Birds do it. Command bridge. That's what it's called. Bridge. We got some command stations. We got a giant glass window. And this guy, Captain Keys. Captain Crunch. He'll be plenty crunchy later. Spoilers.
Good to see you, Master Chief. Things aren't going well. Cortana did her best, but we never really had a chance.
Best scourer in all the
Doesn't come with
UNSC.
superior battleships against a single Halcyon-class cruiser. With those odds, I'm content with 3, make that 4 kills. Sleep well?
No thanks to your driving, yes.
So you did miss me.
Ooh, that's an expression.
That's a
Report.
face.
It must have been one of their boarding parties. I'd guess an antimatter charge.
Ma'am, fire control for the main cannon is offline.
That's
Captain,
also a
the cannon
face.
was my last offensive option.
All right, then. I'm initiating Cold Protocol Article 2. We're abandoning the Autumn. That means you too, Cortana.
While you do what? Go down with the ship?
In a manner of speaking. The object we found, I'm gonna try and land the Autumn on it.
With all due respect, sir, this war has enough dead heroes.
I appreciate your concern, Cortana, but it's not up to me. Protocol is clear. Destruction or capture of a shipboard AI is absolutely unacceptable, and that means you're leaving ship. Lock in a selection of emergency landing zones, upload them to my neural lace, and then sort yourself for a heart transfer.
Aye, aye, sir.
Which is where you come in, Chief. Get Cortana off this ship. Keep her safe from the enemy. If they capture her, they'll learn everything. Force deployment, weapons research, Earth.
I understand.
The Autumn will continue evasive maneuvers until you initiate a landing sequence. Not that you'll listen, but I'd suggest letting my subroutines handle the final approach.
Excellent work, Cortana. Thank you. Are you ready?
Yank me.
Inappropriate, Cortana.
I mean, she's an effectively
Good luck,
nude
Master Chief.
purple lady. I'm pretty sure the Pillar of Autumn's HR department is up to their ears in paperwork.
Your architecture isn't much different from the Autumn's.
Don't get any funny ideas.
So I want to point out some things, especially with that line.
Son, you'll have to find ammo as you go.
In the cutscene, we learned that Cortana is explicitly the Pillar of Autumn's shipboard AI.
It's implied that she is the AI specifically built for this ship, purpose-built.
Yes, the manual also says some things about that. But also,
I gave you a
her
order.
commenting on the
Get off
architecture
this
of Master Chief's armor interface implies that this is the first time she has ever been inside it.
That's correct.
That's a comment towards a game you haven't played yet. But keep it in
alright
mind
then.
Get going,
for
Chief.
however
We
many
need to
months
get
down
off
the line
ship
that's going to
before
be.
it's completely overrun by
Okay.
government.
Well, I also want to point out that that whole exchange, there's a lot to unpack, but one of the things that is implied there is that the Chief and Cortana have known each other for quite a while before this. So you did miss me, for example.
Yeah, they certainly seem on friendly terms in that he can, like, rib her about almost getting the ship destroyed or whatever.
It'll become clear as we go forward, and I won't harp on it too much, but the Halo series was definitely a series that was written as the games were made, and
Yes.
we'll plumb those depths as we go.
It highlights a weakness of Bungie's that they didn't ever conquer. Not even lately in Destiny
Yeah.
2. Also, something I really like mentioning and pointing out when we play this. So Halo's known for its expansive, very detailed skyboxes, right?
That's correct.
So you're like, yeah, of course, the Halo here is a skybox item. But if you move around, you can see by the actual parallax motion that it is literally a 3D object about 200 in-game feet away from us. It's just very small. And,
Forced perspective, I believe, is the term.
well, it would be if it worked.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the being able to move, the parallax kind of destroys the illusion.
Yeah,
Another
it
fun thing
would be
is this
much
little
better.
space down here.
It would be much better served if it was just a piece of the skybox.
So reckon.
Yes.
I have a question about the design of the Autumn's Bridge.
I can guess what it is. Go ahead.
What is the purpose of the space we currently occupy?
Well, it's to give these, brave boys in yellow up here the unending fear of the void anytime they look down.
Right.
Or-
What's the quote about humans and windows and Xin in Niven's Meng
Oh,
Xin
are we
was?
talking about Niven already?
Well, I mean, you mentioned him in the intro.
I did. There's a lovely exchange in one of Larry Niven's books, I forget which one, there are so many, where the Zinti aliens, giant 8-foot-tall cat people made out of muscle and claws and anger, comment that they have no idea why humans insist on putting their bridges at the very front of their starships. Because all it means is that you can target the windows and blow them all out into space. Whoops, that's a human man.
Those
Yeah,
could use some
bit
help,
of blue
Chief.
on blue
Do what
there.
you do best.
Speaking
So-
of blue on blue,
Yes, we see our first large man. The Elite.
Who's with me? Sure, I got your back.
So we've been introduced to two enemies already. These are grunts. That's an Elite. And the aliens carry their own brand of weapons, which we are free to use. And once we get through this little area in the mess hall here, believe we have some talking to do about said alien weaponry.
absolutely,
And
the aliens themselves.
yeah. So let's start with the weapons. We went
Let's-
through that whole opening sequence and talked to Captain Keyes.
He gave us a half-loaded pistol.
He gave us a pistol. Because, for better or worse, Wolfenstein 3D cemented the holy progression of gun. Pistol, pistol, automatic, then shotgun and or better automatic, heavy of some kind.
Usually a rocket launcher.
Halo actually doesn't give you a shotgun until about halfway through the game. I think it's the longest time to shotgun ever. But so I've shot the plasma rifle a bit. It's well, I mean, it's the plasma rifle from Doom. It's even blue.
But that is notable because there is a conscious decision in this game to give the enemies that you fight, well, for the most part, we'll get into it later, to give the enemies you fight projectile weapons,
Very true.
which allows the player to deftly evade enemy weapons fire. It, in theory, doesn't always work out that way.
So that'll bring us into something else, and I do want to comment on that, but I want to take a look at this plasma pistol here.
Right.
So I brought up Unreal. I'm going to
You
bring
did.
it up again by doing this. Boy, that looks familiar.
Is that just the dispersion pistol?
I think it is. Literally just the
Well.
dispersion pistol.
It's a little worse than dispersion pistol. The projectiles don't have colored lighting.
Yeah, they have colored muzzle flashes, of course, but
Yep.
the actual projectiles don't cast any light except when they impact.
Of course, we have to be fair. There were hardware limits. Well, no, this had a PC port. Oh, well, that was a port. So there
Yeah.
were hardware limitations then. It was an Xbox game. Originally.
It still came out 3 years after Unreal,
True enough.
and looks half as good.
Well, if you'll remember, the original Xbox was certainly sold on its PC hardware in a console sort of thing. So
They're still
know.
trying that, and the Xbox One
mhm.
tried that as well. Did you know that the Xbox One still can't run Half-Life 2 at a steady 60 FPS with anti-aliasing?
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, let's not get into the original Xbox port of Half-Life then.
Speaking of ports, the port for Halo, which, this is the Master Chief Collection, the port for Halo 1 is based off of the original 2003 PC port, of course, as I said in the intro. There are notable issues with it, but that port came out in 2003.
Dad knew there was one on.
What the hell? Did something just hit us? Move
Yes,
in.
it did,
Back to the airlock.
guy from Sin.
So now let's get into Diegetic placement.
Oh, I love this topic.
Alright. So, something hit us, and we ran this corner to an escape pod bay, and... Oh, look at that! We've been boarded.
Oh, that's very clever.
That is very clever. I believe Cortana will even comment on it once we've finished off our foes
Keep your
here.
head down. There's 2 of us in here now, remember?
Yeah.
That can't be all of them.
Here
So,
we go.
yeah, look, we can go inside.
Using our lifeboat airlocks to attach their boarding craft. We go out and they come in. Clever bastards.
Ooh, using that M rating.
We'll talk about that too.
Yep.
A little later.
But yeah, so there is a deliberate effort to justify the placement of enemies and weapons in Halo 1.
Indeed, there is.
They're not just standing around. Well, these guys were standing around in a monster closet, but we're given an explanation for why, at the very least.
Yeah, it's a monster closet with a history, with a story, with a soul, Skelzor. It's got soul.
We'll get into soul versus soulless too.
Yeah, so of course we see the enemies drop their weapons, and you know, we can only carry the 2 of them, which is, we lament about this often, how Halo ruined video games.
We'll start pouring over that, don't worry.
But yeah, you can only carry the 2 weapons, and it forces you to make some decisions as to what combat is going to be like when you get to it. Of course, I'm carrying 2 plasma weapons, so I can break shields very easily, but doing damage to health is a bit more difficult. Let's pick up this from this dead Marine who dropped it. Makes sense.
I believe the dedicated term was weapons sandbox, and that was after the fact they came up with that, right?
Yes. I'm not a fan of that term, because I know what Halo is doing. You know, I just explained it. It makes you approach combat with a critical eye. But developers had been using different ways to limit a player's firepower options in combat plenty of times before, and that was just by limiting ammo pickups. You couldn't run around with your super powerful weapon all the time because you'd run out of ammo, and it was pretty rare to find some.
Well, you see, now we get to go into more of Halo ruining FPSs forever. The thing about that is that you've got to be, like, pickup placement, especially in first-person shooters, requires a lot of fine-tuning and testing and play testing and replay testing. Oh dear. He has perished. It's okay, we're playing co-op, he'll be back. All I gotta do is walk out of the fight.
Yeah. See, there, while it's still fresh in my mind, I was actually victim to something fairly unique to... Oh, I spawn with no weapons. That's very interesting.
Ooh, that is interesting.
Something fairly unique to Halo 1, as far as in the series, and that is that unexploded grenades dropped by enemies will explode when a grenade goes off near them. So you see these 4 grenades over here?
I will demonstrate.
Let's throw a grenade at them. Yeah. Watch out for that.
It's a double-edged sword, I'll be honest. It's something I miss as the series goes forward. It's a lot of fun to me.
It is, even if it creates some issues.
He's just hanging out. But yes, so diegetic placement of items, right? Especially as we
Here's
go
a
into
health
this,
pack to illustrate your point.
Because, you know, there'd be med stations on a human spaceship, so we're finding med packs on walls. Placing ammunition and pickups in first-person shooters is very difficult because you got to get it just right for multiple difficulties, for multiple levels.
As an amateur map designer myself, yes it is.
So, to that end, diegetic placement certainly can make the job easier because you can easily just be like, well, there'd be a med pack here. But it can also make your job exponentially harder because you've got to work really hard to justify why something is somewhere if you're placing your player in certain environments where it wouldn't make sense. And
like, say, an alien superstructure untouched by human hands where there'd be no point for health packs to be?
Well, we don't know about that yet.
Of course we don't.
But yes, and so that is worth pointing out, because another way that Halo changed the FPS genre is its health system, which I will let you discuss now, Rickett, with our dear viewer.
So, Halo, of course, we can see now, up in the right corner there, top right corner, something's flashing and now it's filling back up. That's my shield meter. We have shields. When you get hit and have shields, it looks like this. It's all yellow and stuff. When the shields break, it does that. Any further damage will be delivered directly to the player's health. Shields recharge, health does not. The projectile nature of Covenant alien weaponry means that you can dodge. Oh, he's dodging all my shots. Who is he? The Matrix Man? Which means that as you go through combat, you can take certain risks that you might not otherwise in other shooters full of hit-scanning enemies. And hit-scanning in general is, of course, you press the button, bullets appear where your crosshairs are. Projectile is, it shoots a thing and the thing has to connect. So the difference, yes, the difference between your shields and your health, again, one recharges, one doesn't, but what that means as far as taking risks is that you can be like, I've got plenty of shields, I can run up and, like, grab something, I can run up and throw a grenade at someone, I can reposition. When your shields
bash someone.
Yeah, when your shields are broken, you want to play a little safer, but
they recharge.
You don't. Yeah, the shields recharging. If you take a couple points of health damage, it's fine. But then it starts whittling down, and you're like, I'd rather have my shields do all the work for me. So you pull back a little bit. You play it a little safer. It's an interesting dynamic that I think Halo 1 does pretty well.
Well, it's built around it.
The issue I was hinting at with health packs comes later, where you'll usually only find one health pack per level. And that can be a problem.
Don't worry, we'll get there. But, that's the thing, is that Halo, in adding shields as a mechanic for the player, made it a lot easier to design combat encounters, because you always know that the player is going to have full shields going into an encounter. Assuming that your player is, you know, not brain dead. So, if you know your player has, you know, at least this much protection from being shot, you can then devise combat encounters that are always exciting and engaging and tense. You don't have to be like, oh, you know, did I put a health pack in this hallway before this fight?
Right.
Speaking of hallways, our first divergence from hallways.
Yeah, lots of right angles in the Pillar of Autumn.
But now we have to look up.
I'm sure it's just human architecture that will change once we get to some sort of alien structure. So yes, you did mention this is our first vertical combat arena of the game. Again, you know, this was made for consoles in an era where there were basically only 3 other console shooters. And looking up was a novelty. Having free movement was a novelty. But
well, we'll get into in a little bit the control scheme for this game as well. I want to mention that.
Yeah.
But yeah, vertical combat. It's for a console FPS is certainly a novelty. I don't remember ever having to look up in GoldenEye.
Yeah, that's because the N64 controller was terrible.
It just wasn't made for human hands. That's all.
So, you know, speaking of seeing a lot of right angles, we've also seen a lot of these little grunt dudes and these elites in, you know, 2 colors each. You got red grunts, orange grunts, blue elites, red elites.
So the video game vernacular that the kids use is palette swap.
Yes. And, palette swaps are generally not really, I don't want to say looked down on, but they're certainly taken into consideration a little more critically, because they're not actually a new enemy. They don't behave differently. These two grunts have, they were carrying the same exact weapon. These elites are only carrying plasma rifles, and sure, it's the first level, but this means we've really only fought 2 enemies. And even the first level of Doom puts you up against imps, shotgunners, and pistol dudes.
The life pods are launching. We should hurry.
It's interesting because, oh look, we get a nice little...
Yeah. Oh, goodbye.
Covenant are destroying the life pods.
Oh,
They
that
really
guy's
don't
dead.
want us on that range.
It's interesting because I would say that the later entries of the Halo series actually do pretty well on enemy variety.
Oh,
although
yes.
some are much better than others.
Look, I'm gonna be honest. I'll spoil my opinion about Halo 2. Halo 2,
Warning, blast doors closing.
with
You
the
have to use the ship's
2
maintenance
enemies
access
it
points.
added,
Follow the nav point.
effectively tripled the amount of enemies they could actually place because of the different weapons they also added that they could give enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it really shows in Halo 1. This is the first level, and we have seen a full half of the Covenant enemy roster, as well as 2 of the 3 Covenant weapons available in the entire game. And of course, they're both projectile versions of the other weapons we've been given. So, not really the most impressive sort of look-see at the world at large.
So, yeah, and it's... I don't know, I guess they didn't want to overwhelm people. So, we need to talk about the
It
fact
looks
that,
like the Covenant wanted to catch you now.
Halo was a lot of people's first experience with, like, a big FPS, right?
Sure.
Because the console market, you know, they had shooters, they had first-person shooters, but, like, Halo was the killer app for the Xbox. You went out, you bought an Xbox, you bought Halo, right? And it was big at, like, LAN parties and stuff like that. It was a lot of people's first exposure to the FPS genre.
Yes.
That's just fact, right?
And I'm not going to discount that.
No,
it is
not at all.
something I of course keep in mind. You know, if we waxed so poetical about Unreal, this old-looking game from 1998, we have to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of people seeing Halo for the first time on a console who maybe didn't even know the FPS genre existed.
I mean, a lot of people, it's straight up the first time they'd ever played an FPS game. So maybe there was, I wouldn't say they probably knew that would be the case, but Bungie were probably definitely making an effort not to overwhelm the player in this first stage. Of course, you know, the variety picks up, but doesn't really get crazy as we go forward.
Yeah. It's an issue. It's a running issue in this game.
But it's an issue that stems... Yeah, it's an issue that stems from the elephant in the room, which we have to bring up sooner or later, and we'll probably bring up multiple times. Halo 1 was rushed out the door.
Yeah. What Halo wasn't?
Microsoft has never been kind to Bungie when it comes to release dates, release windows, deadlines, that sort of thing.
Yeah. You know, and famously, I mentioned,
The damage to
you know,
superstructures extends.
Bungie was primarily a Macintosh
more
developer
abuse the Autumn can
in the
take.
90s. But, you know, famously, Halo was originally going to be an RTS for the Macintosh. And I still don't know the timeline here offhand, if Microsoft poached them before or after Halo became a third-person shooter, but at some point Microsoft poached Bungie from Macintosh and was like, hey, you're gonna make Halo for our new console. better learn it. So, Bungie made half of a game, and you get to play it twice, and it shows.
Yeah.
Such as this environment not being conducive to easy player pathfinding.
We've already kind of looped back on ourselves, I think. But yeah,
entirely
there's
sure.
so Halo, it gets things right, it gets
Maintenance.
things wrong, and a lot of that stems from yes, clearly defined arrows on the floor. I
Or
believe
did we
we're
just
supposed to follow
come
it.
from maintenance?
I'm not even certain.
Oh, no, here we are.
Yep. So, well, this is actually a perfect example of a problem with the level design. We'll go into this now. A lot of the time, due to the way that the levels are put together, the only way you know that you're going the correct way is if there are enemies still alive when you arrive at a location.
Yeah. This is not the most memorable of areas. And we're coming up on the end of the first level here, so we'll cut it short, but we've plenty to talk about going
Very good time
forward.
to leave.
Absolutely.
We have so much to talk about going forward. So, of course, thank you for joining us for this first rather long episode, Halo 1, putting up with our rambling.
Aren't we, sir? I don't want to die out here.
There's a lot to discuss.
Look.
Halo is a game that begs conversation, and that's what we're here for.
See, now we get a glimpse of the true scale. It's not just, a model.
Yeah. It's not quite as big as
The
Larry
odds
Niven said it would be.
accelerating. Keys is going in manual.
We see shots, but we never see the ship shooting. Well, we see a ship later, but...
Well, it's also a product of this
Sure you wouldn't rather
not
take a
being
seat?
We'll be fine.
blocked for widescreen.
If I still had fingers, they'd be crossed.
Until next time.
Farewell.